Yeah, it's too bad you're not going to read it to me out loud now, so I could hear what your opinion is.
I can read it. We can
Yeah,
read it.
you want to read it?
Absolutely. I just didn't want, you know how sometimes
Yeah.
when you give someone a gift, you're like, oh, well, I want to be there when they look at it.
No, I'm not.
I don't like this front picture of me.
Oh, no?
I weighed like 20 pounds less. Do you notice that when I started?
Yeah, you were thinner.
Yeah, it's because I worked outside still during the days.
Yeah, that's the only 2 pictures.
Yeah.
Well, the third one.
I don't mind that one as much.
Well, yeah, that's your Facebook page.
Yeah. Oh, is that where you got that?
Oh, well, I need another picture. You don't have much on there at all.
You want me to read the book out loud?
If you want to, yeah.
Being open and willing. In the quiet town of Glendale, Arizona, lived a sad woman named Crystal J. What is your middle name?
Jean.
Jean? Crystal J. Wells. Crystal had a special gift where she could empathize deeply with everyone she met. True. She often changed herself to make others' lives better. While this seemed like a cool superpower, it made it hard for Crystal to know who she truly was. She knew she needed help, so she decided to find a therapist who was wise and understanding. She left her cottage in October 2015 on a quest for the best therapist in all the land. Oh, I love the way you did that. And then she found Karen. No. No. After several years of wandering and searching for someone who could help, Crystal finally met Brian Hufford in May. So it's been since May of 2020. Wow.
Yeah.
I started her in July of 2019.
Yeah.
He was an empathetic therapist who just wanted to help Crystal on her journey to self-discovery and enlightenment. She rambled for hours. He listened to her, validated her experience, and created a safe space for her to process her fears, doubts, dreams, and goals. She even trusted him with her personal journal entries, poems she wrote, and her dark, shameful secrets. We all have those.
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell you the Carl Jung quote that I'm like all obsessed with? You have to know your own darkness to deal with the darkness of others.
Mm.
I think that's why people can tell me anything, because I have my own.
Right.
Yeah, we all do. The floodgates were open. Crystal shared so much with Brian that she often had to see him twice a week. I remember when we used to see each other twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Brian could tell that helping Crystal wasn't going to be easy, but he knew exactly what to do. So he took her to the Maslow hierarchy of needs forest. I love that. This is where Brian helped Crystal develop Crystal's constitution. I remember that. There's a list of her principles, values, boundaries, and aspirations. This gave Crystal a personalized roadmap to life. Let's take a look at what Crystal learned on her journey with Brian. So self-worth and love. On their way into the forest, Brian made sure to tell Crystal, you are worthy just as you are. Start being unapologetically Crystal, because you have always been worthy of love and respect. This didn't make sense to Crystal at first, but Brian continued to remind her of this truth, and she eventually started to believe him. Our worth is not based on our performance, he explained. It took Crystal a long time to see that outer validation is nice, but it isn't truthful. So she practiced self-love instead. It's so good. I love that. God equals connection. Brian and Crystal journeyed deeper into the forest, comparing their religious upbringings as they pointed out in nature. The topic of God and the meaning of life came up. Brian shared with Crystal that God is about connection, and isolation keeps us stuck. He also helped her see that God is about love and acceptance, not anger and resentment. God supports what pulls us closer together. Thus, life should be all about connection. This helped Crystal understand God in a whole new light. I love that, Crystal. Mindfulness and being present. As they continued their walk through the forest, Brian noticed that Crystal was in a hurry. When he asked her, she said she had anxiety. Brian had her pause and taught her the importance of focusing on her breath to help alleviate anxiety. He also explained to her the importance of being present and finding joy in the moment, rather than focusing so hard on the destination. This goes for worrying about the future too. There's no use trying to control the things we can't control. Just be present. This is really good. So is this me?
No, I'm the little pink dude.
Brian and Crystal continued to walk until they found a peaceful pond. They looked into the water and saw their reflections. Crystal started to cry. She was feeling confused and asked Brian, "Who am I?" Brian paused and said, "Crystal, it's very important to look within yourself. I can't tell you what to do or who to be. Only you have the power to decide for yourself who you are. Your sense of self will develop through self-reflection and meditation." She took a deep breath and smiled. They continued adaptability and serenity. They continued to walk and heard water flowing in the distance. Brian took Crystal to a babbling brook where they had a picnic. Brian pointed to the water and said, "This reminds me of an important lesson. By going with the flow and following the path of least resistance, we can find peace. Just like water, we should adapt to the obstacles we encounter and move forward gracefully." Crystal didn't realize all the time she had been swimming upstream and fighting against currents that didn't need to be fought. I love the way you put all of this.
It took me quite a while to write it.
I can imagine.
And then to design it with clip art was difficult.
This is so good. You could sell this book.
Right?
You could. Perspective and compassion. They approached a bridge made of old, sturdy tree branches. As they crossed, Brian said, "This bridge teaches us about compassion. Understanding people from different perspectives helps us bridge the gaps in our relationships. By seeing the world through others' eyes, we can connect more deeply and live more harmoniously." Crystal picked up a heart-shaped rock and made a wish as she threw it into the water. She secretly wished that she could always have compassion and be open to new perspectives. I love that. I love how you put this in a timeline.
Yeah.
Because like all of these principles are so true, but sometimes it's hard to kind of know like the flow of how to teach people these things.
Well, and I don't even know if it's the correct flow. It just kind of happened the way it happened. And
So growth and resilience. Crystal shared with Brian her fear of reaching her breaking point someday. That's when she knew she was ready for the next step in her healing journey. He walked down the path and found a sturdy tree that stood tall through countless storms. Brian touched the tree and said, "Life can be tough, but with every challenge we grow stronger and wiser. Remember to believe in yourself daily so that when the hard days come, you can draw on the resilience you've been practicing. It will get easier." Boundaries and complexities. As Brian and Crystal headed towards a bend in the road, she asked if she could end relationships with those who've hurt her. Brian said sometimes two things that seem to contradict each other can both be true. People in your life can be wonderful and kind, but they can also make mistakes and hurt us. Life is full of complexities, so there is no one-size-fits-all answer. If we can't compromise or reason with them, then setting boundaries is the best option, especially if we cannot end the relationship completely. Routine and support. As Brian and Crystal continued their journey, they met a shadowy figure named Addiction standing near the waterfall. "I am addiction," it said. "I trap people in a cycle of dependence." Brian moved Crystal aside and discouraged her from speaking to addiction. Brian whispered, "There are many things we can become addicted to. The important thing to remember is to stick with your routine, keep seeking support, don't isolate yourself from others, or addiction will get you again." True. I like that. balance, and emotional stability. Crystal shared with Brian her analogy about bicycles. I remember that. I've used that with people. And the importance of being emotionally balanced. She explained that leaning too far in any direction can lead to depression. He agreed as he climbed a tree and used a vine like a tightrope. Life is a balancing act, he said, showing her how to steady herself on the vine. Finding balance in all things is the key to a fulfilling life. Crystal wobbled at first, but eventually found her balance and smiled at the analogy they both shared. Persistence and self-belief. As they climbed down from the tricky trees and touchy topics, Brian could tell that Crystal was knowledgeable and very self-aware. He suggested she should become a therapist too. Brian taught Crystal to see the forest through the trees, believing in herself even when the path seemed daunting. Despite her fears, she took the brave step of going back to school, putting one foot in front of the other. Brian's support helped her realize that persistence and self-belief can turn dreams into reality. It's so true. I'm happy that you're doing this. Are you still doubting it?
Not so much.
Good. Accountability and empowerment. As Brian and Crystal continued their walk, Crystal shared how she often second-guesses herself, feeling the pressure to fix others in order to feel safe. Brian reminded her that she is not responsible for how other people choose to behave. You have every right to be who you are, and they have every right to their feelings, but they are always responsible for their own behavior. Crystal joined CoDA and learned that boundaries are not about controlling others. It is about setting limits for herself, and that's it. As Crystal and Brian turned the corner, they smelled something wonderful. Flowers. Crystal squealed, bending down to smell each one she could find. They had arrived at a lush garden filled with creativity. Brian smiled and said, "This is the garden of creativity. It's where we unleash our imaginations and let our ideas flourish." Crystal then picked up a paintbrush and began painting colorful pictures in the air. Creativity is the spark that turns dreams into reality and makes life magical. It's one thing you are definitely is creative.
Thank you.
Friendship and loyalty. In the meadow of friendship, Brian reminded Crystal that she was not alone. Then, like magic, they were surrounded by all of their friends. They rested on tree stumps, and Brian said, "True friends are the family you choose. They support you, bring you joy, and share in both the good times and the bad." Brian and Crystal gave each other a high five, celebrating the strong friendships they had built. Crystal hoped to one day be as good of a friend to Brian as he had been to her. Wow, I love that. Determination and reassurance. Their path finally led them to the base of a mountain. Crystal was nervous, but Brian gently said, "I believe you have what it takes now, Crystal. Determination helps you achieve your goals and overcome any obstacles." Brian had no doubt in her abilities. She believed in herself too. Brian's support helped Crystal find the courage to stand up for herself. Recognizing the true healing and growth came from within, she then climbed that mountain like a boss, panting and out of breath, but she did it. I remember when you were going to go climb the mountain for your dad, remember?
Yeah.
Healing and introspection. Brian could tell Crystal was ready for the next step in her journey, so he led her into a dark and scary cave. Some topics were painful and uncomfortable, such as her suicidal thoughts and memories from her past. But Brian helped her see how her trauma shaped who she is today. He explained the importance of reaching out for help when feeling overwhelmed. "You are never alone," he said. "Talk to someone you trust. There's always hope and support is available." Her trauma wasn't gone, but with Brian's support, Crystal learned how to face it, cope, and gradually heal. And then gratitude and acceptance. As Brian and Crystal neared the top of the mountain, the path looked more dangerous. Brian took this chance to teach Crystal about acceptance. He explained that there will always be obstacles in life and that we can't always get what we want. Practicing gratitude can change your perspective, he said. It helps you focus on the good things and fosters a positive outlook. The key is knowing what we can change and what we can't. By focusing on what we can change, we find peace. Accepting the things we can't change brings freedom. This gave Crystal hope. So good. Rejoice and share. After 4.5 years of climbing the mountains, crossing bridges, and stopping by caves, Brian and Crystal's journey ended at the peak of enlightenment. With a heart full of new knowledge, Crystal's eyes smiled as she raised her arms towards the sky, fully realizing she had finally reached self-actualization. Throughout their journey, with more than 230 therapies, has it been that many? How did you find that out? You just figured.
How many we've had for how many years, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was only a couple that we didn't have one.
Yeah. They had turned over every stone and touched on all the essential needs of Maslow's hierarchy: psychological, safety, love, and belongingness, esteem, and finally self-actualization. Now it's time to rejoice. Crystal felt she was finally ready to let Brian go. She couldn't wait to share everything that she learned with others. Crystal had a deep understanding of who she was and of her true potential. She felt a deep connection to herself and to the world around her. Last page. Dear Brian, thank you for being a dependable sounding board for me every week. You've taught me to trust my own strengths, recognize my self-worth, and to stay present in the moment. I can now use the tools to help me see that I have autonomy and choice in every situation. While it might seem like my journey of self-discovery is ending, it's not. Your encouragement and words of validations have illuminated my path as I strengthen my connections to others and continue with my education. I am deeply grateful for the meaningful conversations and insights that we've shared over the years. Who you are has made an impact on my life, and I hope to make the same lasting impact on others as well. Wishing you all the best in your career. Thank you again. It's so awesome, Crystal. Thank you. I'm going to give you a hug.
Okay.
Boundary crossing.
That's okay. What are you going to do? Get fired?
No.
Can I sign? I was going to sign.
Yes, I was going to ask you to, like wherever you want.
Because I was like, I need to leave a space
I
for
know,
me
I
to
need
sign.
you to do that.
Only because I'd like to sign my letters that are right.
Thank you, Crystal. That was so sweet.
Yeah.
This is something I will always keep. Or maybe I'll publish it and say that I wrote it.
Well, I was thinking if I ever did publish it with like real pictures, like real illustrations, then yeah, it could be something
That's a very good
out
book.
there. You got the first draft.
It's already 7.
Jim's out there then.
Is he out there?
Yeah, he drops Matthew off and we leave Matthew the car. So he waits for me.
You have my number,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
It
welcome.
was really sweet and very, very, very well written.
Without saying too many details, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you didn't talk about specifics.
Yeah. No. It wasn't about him.
Nope.
It was all about me anyway. Oh, I want to get a picture. Is that cool? Yes, is that one kind of weird? We'll stay in touch.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Yoga. I'll see you probably November 12th, I think. Alrighty. We'll see how this goes. Alright. Bye. I just want to cry. But I'm good. I'm good.
Sorry.
It's weird.
Yeah, I bet.